Hey, Nish here, and today we're looking at the Zoom MS50G. This is a very compact multi-effects pedal for the guitar. It's very similar to the MS70CDR, so you can consider this review for that pedal as well. That pedal is just missing some effects like distortion, but the rest is the same. So diving straight in, we see that this pedal is the same size as any typical guitar pedal. There's one foot switch on there, which is surrounded by 4 directional buttons, and then there's 3 dials that also act as buttons on the top. You can power it with your typical 9-volt 500 milliamp power supply, or you can put 2 AA batteries on there and that will last around 5 hours. In terms of I/O, there's a mono 1/4-inch jack input, and then there's either mono or stereo output. Then there's a mini USB port. You can use this to connect it to a computer, and from there you can update the effects, update the firmware. Now the idea of this pedal, like most multi-FX pedals, is that there is a bunch of effects and amp simulators on there, and you can use them to construct a virtual pedal board. There's 50 patches or memory slots on here, and 30 of them come pre-populated with different configurations. Now before moving on to how this thing works, please subscribe if you like the video. It helps the channel grow and I'd really appreciate it. So I'll show you here how we can make a new virtual pedal board, and I'm going to load up an empty patch. Then you can add a new pedal by holding the left or right direction buttons. The pedals are in categories, so there's dynamics, overdrive, amps, modulation, delay, and reverb. So we can start with distortion or something, find something, browsing the pedals up and down. Each patch can hold up to 6 effects, although the pedal has a limited processing power, so if you choose a lot of heavy effects, then you might run into that processing limit before you reach 6. In my experience, the heaviest effects are some of the more complicated delays, so you're unlikely to be stacking a load of them together, but it's just worth bearing in mind. Now you see when you have a pedal selected, it kind of looks like it could be any normal guitar pedal. So you use the foot switch to activate and deactivate, then you can start turning the dials to access the parameters. Sometimes there's more than one page and you can navigate those. If I now add in another pedal, we can move back and forth between them with the left and right direction buttons. You can also start shuffling around the order of the pedals for the signal chain. One really cool effect, or not really an effect, is called the line selector, and this lets you activate and deactivate multiple effects at once. Essentially, the line selector is like a gate. It either lets the signal through to all of the pedals that come after it, or it bypasses them and sends the output straight to the exit. A usage of this, which I use a ton, is combining a distortion effect with a delay effect, and this means that the pedal can serve like a dedicated solo button. Aside from that, there's also a tuner built in, so you can hold the foot switch and that will open up the tuner, which can mute the output. So I can show you here a setup I use for busking a lot, improvisation busking, and what I've got here is I'm using that line selector I mentioned with a distortion and a delay, and then I've got a couple standalone pedals on the other side which I can navigate using the buttons and activate and deactivate. So I won't give examples of all the different pedals in here, that would take a long time. Maybe there's other videos on YouTube, but for example, you can see the difference between a normal output and my soloing button. And then you've also got a chorus I like to use. And an octave. Then there's some crazy delay stuff going on. And finally an auto wah. What do I like about this pedal? Well, I think it meets the niche that I needed. I wanted something really portable that was battery powered and had a lot of different effects and had the ability to do more than one effect at once. So I've shown that that is pretty much possible, and this has worked really well for me on the streets. I'm pretty happy with the quality and the range of effects. Some of them sound really cool, some of them don't sound that cool, and the cool thing about a pedal like this is you can spend some time exploring and finding a sound that you like, and you don't have to necessarily use all 60 or 70 effects that are available. I think the controls are also pretty intuitive. It didn't take me long to get used to navigating around and putting things together, especially the dials. They just have a really good tactile feel. There's a nice like graduation when you're turning the dial, you feel the little clicks, and it's just a nice little touch. It's worth reiterating that when you do plug this into a computer, there are quite a lot of other effects available. There's a limited memory on here, so you can't take all of them and download them down, but you can have a flip around and remove some and add some. And I've put a link in the description where you can access all the resources for this pedal, including manuals, effects lists, and all those firmware things. Now there's not really a lot of cons here, but the fact that it's quite a small multi-effects pedal means you don't really get that stomp box mode that you sometimes have where you're kind of mimicking a pedal board in the multi-effects. So for example, the Boss GT1 I looked at, you could set that up like a pedal board because you'd have 3 different effects that have 3 separate pedals that you use. Whereas on this one, you know, when I'm using my improvisation setup, I have to like crouch down, press the directional button, and then, you know, activate the effect that way. The other thing is price-wise, I guess it's a little bit expensive-ish. So it's about £100, 110 euros or so. And I think it's a reasonable price for the amount of effects you get and the quality of the effects. But obviously, for the similar price, you can probably get a bigger multi-effects unit that's a little bit easier to use. So to conclude, I think this is a really nice bit of kit. I've really enjoyed using it, and I think there's a couple use cases which could work well for. So one of them is, for me, I wanted something portable that was quite capable, and it meets those needs. And the other thing is, to be honest, in a normal pedalboard setup, this could be a really good tool to plug any gaps you have, because it's got a variety of things like delay, reverb, chorus. And so if you're missing some of those effects, then you could just plug this in and you've even got a tuner on this. So like, why buy a tuner pedal when you could buy one of these? So I hope this has been a useful review. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you think there's another multi-effects pedal that beats this one in terms of portability, subscribe for more To The Point content, and I'll catch you in the next one.